Okay, Garrett, I think we get started and start rolling. I want to welcome everybody today to our Career Symposium panel. And I'm Pat Fitzgibbons. I'm the Vice President of the Alumni Board. And I'm really happy to have everybody here today. And especially, here's Catherine now, one of our other panelists. I'm especially happy to have two of my classmates on this panel with me who have a lot of great things to say from a practical level, much more so than I, and there's Catherine Mcavoy.
Hi, I'm so sorry, guys.
No
I had a hard
worries.
time getting on here, of course, but keep going, Pat.
No
I'm in the
worries.
same boat,
everybody.
no worries.
I'm just introducing.
Great.
So all of us on this panel have, including myself, have experience running our own business or, doing something entrepreneurial. For me, it was starting my own PR operation during a time when I was in between jobs. One I'd finished, the other was just getting ready to start. But our other panelists have a lot more experience with this, and I just think it's a great time to be talking about business and entrepreneurialism. I think if there's one thing that we've learned in the last year and a half, it's that there is value in doing things that you are happy in doing and choose to do. And I think that all of us who have done anything on our own can talk a little bit about that and about the challenges and the benefits of doing it. So to be representative, let me start off with Lisa, who was first on the call after me. What we'll do is we're going to introduce ourselves. I'm going to ask all of our panelists to do a little bit of an introduction, talk about themselves a little, talk about their business. But then what we really want this to be is an opportunity for you to ask us questions, to talk to the panelists, and for us to just throw around ideas. And then we'll go from there. We'll see how it goes. Lisa, how about kicking us off?
I am part of the class of 1989, and I was a business major at St. Mike's. And I will say that my entrepreneurial spirit started back in high school when the other panelist here, Carol Adams, she and I started a business in high school, and it was a window washing business that was very successful. We carried it into college, and we ended up actually selling it. So that was really, I think, both our entrees into starting a business on our own and seeing where we could take it. And it was pretty fun, pretty neat. And as I got to St. Mike's and took business classes, more and more of it applied to what we did with our business and how we ran it. And after college, I went and worked in New York City for Xerox Corporation in sales for 9 or 10 years. And I looked at that as working for a big corporation that had a lot of resources, a lot to learn. But as an independent sales rep, it was very entrepreneurial in that I had my chunk of Manhattan to work with, and I was responsible for generating business out of that. So I looked at it and worked it like a small business in its own. So that was really fun, having the corporate experience. And then I had a couple children, stayed home for a while. And 10 years ago, I bought an existing small business in town, an ice cream shop, and ran that successfully until yesterday, where I closed on it. I sold it to a family in town. So now I will be moving on to something else. I'm not quite sure, but
window washing again, maybe.
Maybe. I did my own after this hurricane-y thing. But anyway, that's the gist of me. I met my husband at school, and
He was much older than us, though.
yeah, he's an 88.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Carol, you want to go next?
Sure. Um, okay, so yeah, I guess I was an English major at St. Michael's, also class of 1989. I get to study with Laurie Smith and Carrie Kaplan and John Engels, and I thought that I would make my career in that world. After college, I made futons at the Burlington Futon Company for a year, and then I had the idea of traveling abroad and teaching abroad. So I went to Thailand for 2 years. First year I taught with World Teach, which is a Harvard-based organization. It's sort of like a mini Peace Corps. And you get your training, 1 month training, cultural and language. And then I loved it so much that when my 1 year was up, I hit the pavement and I looked for another teaching job, and I ended up teaching at an international school, which I loved. And then I thought, well, I better just peel myself away from this now, or I'm going to live in Thailand for the rest of my life and my family will not like that. So I came back and I went to graduate school, and I went to UVM, and I was an English lit master's student, and I decided that I didn't love the program and it didn't feel practical to me. So I went to Quinnipiac University. And there I got my certification for secondary English teaching, Master's of Arts in teaching English at the secondary level. And then I was a teacher, for a while. And then I got married and I had a family, and I moved on to my husband's family farm. And there I totally changed course. And when my first 2 children were preschoolers, I decided, it's a long story and I won't tell it, but I decided to start a coffee roasting business. And I did it out of one of the very tiny barns. It was a milk room. It was like where the dairy, the milk was stored. I turned that into a tiny little roastery, and I had no idea what I was getting into, because soon I was roasting till midnight, and then I ran a tiny little cafe. I was brewing coffee and getting the water from the hose to brew, and then cleaning out my equipment in the hose, and then it expanded, and I just went one roaster bigger and another roaster bigger, and then I had many employees and I had to move to a second location, and it just grew. And now it's 20 years old, and it's successful. And I really love, I'll field questions if anybody has any. There's so much detail I could go into, and I guess advice I would give people just that I learned from the journey along the way. But yeah, so that's where I am now. I'm on the farm, but I'm running the business in a neighboring town where there's more commerce, and it just has the ability to be more successful.
That's great. That's a great story. Although I would have really been challenged to leave Thailand. It sounds like that was just an amazing adventure.
Amazing. Yeah.
Catherine, can you give us, can you do a similar bit of your story, please?
Sure. I'm going to sound like I have real ADHD when I tell my story, but I probably do. It's not diagnosed, but I'm a typical creative, I think, that can't nail anything down. But I think I've found my way in my 40s. But I graduated from St. Mike's in 1998 with an English lit major. I started off as a business administration major, and I realized that there were parts of it that I liked and there were parts of it that I struggled with, like mainly the math part of it all, because I am a creative. And I think, in my opinion, it's hard to be good at both. So I think I was, interested in starting a business, but I realize now that I have my own business that I have to outsource when it comes to the accounting and things like that. But so I graduated in 98, made it, did it in 4 years, which my parents were, I think, were a little surprised about. And I moved back to Boston, and I'm not going to lie. Like I felt funny even being asked to be on this board, because I feel like I, didn't find my way until probably my mid to late 30s. It was kind of like, until then, I feel like I job hopped. I was like, just struggling, to be honest. And St. Mike's was great and it gave me a great education, but it was just a maturity thing, I think, where I worked in administrative positions, and I, I always knew I wanted to do something creative, but I just never really had the guts. And and then in my mid 30s, I think I had 2 kids at that time. I now have 3. And I, moved to Hingham where I live now. And I figured, I've always wanted to do something with fashion and with, something creative. And I started a business in Hingham called The Honest Eye, where I shop for people. And I would shop for people, and then I worked for an agency where I'd style photo shoots. So I'd work, with Timberland or Wayfair or Talbots and style the models, for their magazines or for e-commerce for their websites, as well as my other business, The Honest Eye. So I did that for a few years, and it was successful. Actually, I had pretty good clientele, and I was also raising 3 kids, so it was a lot. And then, I can get into the whole story about how I designed my first handbag, but it kind of came to me one day where I was looking through a coffee table book. Sounds kind of, I don't know, a funny way to stumble upon it, but it was a Vogue coffee table book, and it was about celebrities' offices. And there was a picture of Sofia Coppola, her office, and there was a handbag like thrown in the corner of this messy office. And I don't know why my eyes went like right to it. And I was like, I love that bag. I want that bag. And I never like hunt down articles of clothing, or accessories, but I like wanted this bag. Couldn't find it anywhere. Decided, I'm going to have one made. I don't know how that came into my head. And this story could go on, but I had it made. I designed a handle that took me like a year and a half to nail down to what I wanted it to look like. Wore it around, and people would stop me and say like, who makes your bag? And I'd say, I did. And so I then made a few hundred bags. I couldn't do thousands, so it's hard to find a factory that would work with me and just do a few hundred because they all have minimums. But I found one, and I sold out. I didn't sell out, but I sold 100 bags within the first like 2 weeks.
Where did you sell them?
Online, just direct to consumer. Yeah, I have a website called Shop Couchette. And a lot of the people were definitely like connected to me somehow, friends and family, but or I'd have a friend buy a bag and then they'd wear it out and somebody would say, I like that. And they'd give them, I'd always give people cards to give out. So it just kind of grew. I'm still very new. I just started this. That's why I feel funny. I feel like imposter syndrome being on this board right now, but I just started in April. So it kind of timed out well, actually, with the pandemic. I was working on it all during the pandemic. And then by the time I had the bags in my, on me to sell, it was April. And it was time when people were, itching to like buy new things and get out, and, the vaccine was here. And so it was good timing. So now I'm slowly growing. I don't have, endless resources to make thousands of bags. And I don't, it's scary to do that because who knows if you'll sell them, but I'm designing new fabrics and I'm designing new styles. And I have my bags just in 3 stores now. I haven't really approached stores to sell them out of yet because I go back and forth whether I want that. I think it's probably a good idea because I think people can see, it gets me out there a little more than just relying on my website. But 3 stores had approached me, one in Wellesley, one in Chatham, and one in Ridgefield, Connecticut. I always get the name wrong, but so I'm in 3 stores there and then mostly online. So that was
Great.
A ramble, but that's me.
That wasn't a ramble at all.
What?
You have one to show us?
I actually have my own here. Yeah, this is.
Let's see.
Ooh, I
one.
love it.
Thank
love
you.
Oh, that's
that.
nice.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
really
so I have
pretty.
this in a few different colors, and then I should have brought my other one. I have like belt bags, kind of modern fanny packs, I would say, that
Ooh.
are more sleek looking than a big bulky fanny pack. They're more just look like an envelope almost that you can
Nice.
fit, your phone and your keys and your sunglasses, and
Right.
and now I'm making a smaller version of what I just showed you. So we're getting there.
I'm in
That's-
Duxbury. I got to check it out.
You're in Duxbury?
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Right near me.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Thank
That's
you.
really great. It's funny, I think, and I think this is something to think about when, you're starting to think about your career and your, my dad worked for the same company for 39 years. And I think that a lot of us who are in our generation have similar experiences where our parents worked for places for a really long time. And a lot of us came out of college, came into the workforce thinking that maybe our careers would be somewhat like that, would somewhat mimic our parents. But I've had 12 jobs. And one of them I had for 10 years. So there's no right way of doing your career, I think. And I think that, like, thinking about imposter syndrome and thinking about all that is common for people of our generation and for the kids that are at school right now, because our careers are going to be completely different and have been completely different than our parents. And your careers now coming out of school or thinking about what you want to do are going to be completely different than our experience. But there are a few things that I think we all sort of picked up along the way that are kind of general ideas that I think can help. And that's kind of what we're here for, and why we wanted to do this panel. Garrett and Ingrid, I'm happy to take, opening this up for any questions, or I've got a few questions that we can ask if we want to continue that. But certainly we want to let the students run this show.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything come through yet, Pat, but I guess I'd encourage the group. Anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat or use the Q&A function, and I'll monitor those. And Pat, I can jump in throughout as they come up.
Okay, that sounds great. So, if we sort of continue the discussion, Lisa, maybe you can talk a little bit about what were the things that you've liked the most about doing this. And what have you found, and this is for everybody, I think, what have you found sort of the most fulfilling about a career like this versus maybe a career where, you're at Xerox, or for myself, I worked at Bear Stearns for a while, the big investment bank, and it was just like too big, too much.
Yeah.
Maybe we start with that.
So the ice cream business, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, everyone loves ice cream. It's a happy business. You don't really get too many disgruntled customers.
All three of you are doing happy things.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big part of wanting to buy the business when the opportunity came along was to stay connected with my community. And my kids were of the ripe age for starting to work. And my daughter actually worked. She had just started working at the shop when they were selling it, but and just the ability to have my own thing. Like, I was looking for my thing at this time in my life, and it gave me the flexibility and the freedom to, run it the way I wanted to, and since I'm around in the summer, it's seasonal, so I'm open 6 months. So those are the months that I'm really around town, because it's a great town to be here in the summer. And it just worked really well for me in my stage of life. If I were to do it 20 years ago, which I would have loved that opportunity as well, I probably would have taken it to the next level. And there were so many little things I thought about doing along the way, and I just got lazy, really. But I had such a good list of things that I would do and expand. And the shop itself is not winterized. It's just a little cottagey kind of place. So I couldn't really do much in the winter, but there was just so much, there's a lot of potential. So when you get your hands on a business, like you heard Carol talk about, you can really make it explode and be all that you want it to be.
That's great. There's a couple questions that have actually come in while you were talking, and I wanted to open this up to Carol and Catherine as well. One question says that being entrepreneurial does not necessarily mean starting your own business or nonprofit. You can be entrepreneurial while working for a Fortune 500 company, or as Lisa outlined in her description. What advice would you give to students to develop an entrepreneurial mindset in terms of finding new ways of doing things?
Do you want to go, Carol? Oh,
You're on mute, Carol.
Carol.
She's trying.
Sorry.
She got it.
You read my lips, Pat.
I did.
I guess I could speak to that a little bit based on some mistakes that I made, I guess, early on. When I decided that I was going to roast coffee, because I think part of being entrepreneurial is also being a self-starter and also being very independent and thinking that you got this, and then there was internet, and I remember just doing, crazy internet searches for the right coffee roaster, and because of that, I bought the wrong coffee roaster. What I did wrong was I didn't talk to people. I just depended on my own ability to find what I needed. And so I bought the wrong coffee roaster. It was electric. It came from China. It was broken when it arrived. I fixed it. I ran it. It was terrible. The guy, luckily, I had $7,000 to start my business, and that was $4,000. And the guy luckily gave me my money back. And then I started making phone calls and talking to people in the industry. I mean, I was in the yellow pages, and I ended up calling this one woman who took my call. And then she was actually the first really seed for all the good ideas that came about for me. And she turned me on to people that manufactured coffee roasters and how to go to coffee conferences and how to just learn a lot before I got started. So I guess my advice would be it's great if you're independent, and it's great if you have the entrepreneurial spirit, but talk to other people in the industry that you want to be in. Take their advice for starters.
Catherine?
So my advice would be just be valuable wherever you are, I think. I mean, you have to bring something to the table. You don't want to blend in with everybody that you're working for. I mean, when I worked as a wardrobe stylist, there was 40 of us in Boston. And I think I worked pretty hard. I think I worked harder than, I don't know. They say if you need something done, give it to a busy mom. And I think that's sometimes true, because you're just, you're so good at time management. You're effective when you're where you are. And I feel like when I was there, I was effective and I worked very hard and I had opinions. I think that I have always it's come with age, definitely. I think when I was in my, 20s, I didn't speak my mind as much. I think I just, grew a voice more in my late 30s, early 40s. But I think people don't want a wallflower, I don't think, obviously you have to be respectful where you are. But I think if you have an idea that, might be different than what wherever you are is doing it, I think you definitely should bring it up. And the worst they can say is, I don't think that's a great fit for what we're doing or whatever it is. But I think people really respect when you have an opinion. I think, there's nothing worse than a boring person, in my opinion. So I think if you're just, I don't know, you just have some sort of something to say and something to bring to the table, I think that's being entrepreneur. Even if you don't own the business, I think you can own your position in the business and, just make a change a little bit.
I think that's so important. I think that being able to make that stand out is such a big deal. I think from my perspective, when I think about the different paths, the path that I've taken, sort of winding to get to where I wanted to get, is give yourself a break. Not every hit is a home run. And a lot of times jobs feel, or positions feel, or things that you start feel like they were a failure. But I think that as time goes on, you realize that you have learned something from each one of those steps. And I think that's a really, really important thing to remember, that it's very few, there are very few people that, come up with, Steve Jobs got fired before he really got the iPad and iPhone rolling. And I think that's important to remember, and to realize that there are networks of people around that want you to succeed, and to give yourself a little bit of a break, and not be afraid to say. And I think this is something, Carol, that you brought out. Don't be afraid to say, I need a hand with this. I need some help with this.
Yeah.
So another question came in, and this is from Robert. And Robert asked, what kind of courses or experiences outside the classroom were most helpful to you in terms of thinking creatively? And maybe courses outside of your major you took that were interesting, or experiences that you had. Lisa?
Ooh, I gotta think about that.
I can actually think of one. Aside from doing political science at St. Mike's, I did a lot of theater, and I think that experience for me has been invaluable when it comes to being able to be in a meeting, being able to talk to executives at my company that are higher up, that I'm able to sometimes improvise quite well based on that experience, and think through things, while talking. So I think that was there probably aren't a lot of fine arts majors that are in the bank that I do communications for now, but there are times when I certainly wish there were more.
Yeah.
That's kind of my example.
I guess I was a manager of the Rat. I don't know if the kids know what the Rat is, but we actually had a pretty cool bar on campus in the second floor of Alia. Is it still called Alia?
It is, yes.
So I was one of the 3 managers my senior year, and I had worked there junior year. So as a junior, the whole customer service was pretty fun in that space, like waitress type of job, which I hadn't had before. I mean, Carol and I had our window washing business, so we were definitely customer service oriented, but that was fun. And then senior year, I got the job as the finance manager, and that kind of took that whole Rat to a new level for me, because I was now in charge of the books and the money. And at the time, the Rat was not making any money, and it was not well run. And we were actually able to turn it around and make a little money, or at least not cost the school any money. So that was a good experience at St. Mike's.
Great.
I think experiences outside the classroom, I can say one specifically that influenced me a lot was my first exposure. I mean, I had no idea, of course, that this was going to lead somewhere, but my first exposure to good coffee at the time was Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. I mean, and anybody watching this may laugh because that's gas station coffee now, but remember the little coffee cafe in the mill? And we would just be walking halfway down the hall and you could smell it. And we're just like, that is an otherworldly smell. And going in and seeing all the varieties of coffee. And I used to bring it home to my parents and be like, this is what coffee is. Like, this is how it's supposed to taste. And I had no idea that my future would lie in coffee, of course. I mean, but that's an outside the classroom experience, which leads me to add that Vermont is such a great place to explore, and there is so much cottage industry and small business and thriving small businesses, especially in Burlington and Stowe and some of the towns where a lot of people gather. And so just exploring those businesses and see what people are able to do with their creativity and how to appeal.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Pat, one other that we had. Oh, go ahead. No, I was just saying there's one more in the Q&A from Marissa on risks that you guys had to take to start your own business.
I can start, I guess.
Go ahead.
So my risk was, I think a huge risk with starting your own business is just putting yourself out there, and it's scary. Somebody might, you're worried people are going to judge you and think what you're doing is stupid and, frivolous in my case. And I think that's a big risk. Financially, I started small. I didn't have to take a loan or anything like that out. I I had a little bit of a nest egg, nothing huge by any means to start. And I've been very frugal with what I do have. Like I do all my own, I use my neighbor as my model on my website. Like I think I'm, risk-wise, I'm trying not to spend everything on, I'm trying to learn how to do things myself. I watch YouTube videos like no other, teaching myself how to make my Shopify website. And so risk-wise, it's risky to start a business, but I think it's good also to like temper that and not be too risky. You don't want to put your whole, at least I didn't want to at the beginning, put our family's whole life savings on the line to start something that, somebody could have hated this bag and could have been just me that liked it. And you never know. But risk-wise, I think, I guess financially, I could have been left with right now, a couple of 100 bags just sitting in my house, collecting dust. So that was my risk.
But you would have had years of Christmas presents though,
Yes,
that.
right.
So,
I know. I'm trying to push them now because the shipping's just a nightmare. I'm like, order now. You won't get it in time for Christmas if you wait.
Lisa, any thoughts on that as well, on the sort of risks?
The risk I had was buying the business. So I didn't start it, I bought it, a successful existing business. So the risk was just laying out the money and hoping that the numbers I was presented with for the business were as described, and they were, and the return was pretty quick. And like I said, I sold it yesterday and was able to get that money back and then some. But I think it's important to remember, because I, along the way, would forget, like if you buy a business, like anticipate that you can sell it and get that initial investment back. If it's successful and you run it well, most often you can sell it. So that risk is temporary, if you know what I mean, the kids. So it's kind of like giving yourself a loan.
Right.
So that was my risk, but it all worked out.
So I've got another question here. And this is one that I think is really important, especially after sort of the last year and a half. This question is that many of the students I've had over the years think that being your own boss means that they can set their own hours, free up time, especially true for Gen Zs who have a different life, work, balance, outlook than say boomers, which I guess that means that's us. What would you say to students thinking of starting their own business in terms of maintaining a healthy and satisfactory work-life balance? Carol?
My question would be, what do they see? What is the Gen Z outlook on work balance that they're referring to? How is it different?
I think the difference is that that their expectation is a little bit different as far as having more time on the life side and less time on the work side.
Yeah.
Or more flexible arrangements around them.
Well, you got to put your time in.
Yeah,
Get
definitely.
business going, and you could be a slave to it for a little while. I used to have a hard time getting Carol to go out and do fun trips because she was tied down in the early years. But
when you have a business, yeah, I mean, it's all consuming, and I think you have to always be available. I mean, even if you get to the point where you have a great staff and it runs itself, you're still the person that, for example, yesterday I hosted my employees for a photo shoot here at my farm. And then while we were still gathering, I got a phone call from my landlord telling me that my toilet was running and they were trying to fix a septic system. And so who's going to run down and fix the flapper on the toilet? That's the owner. So
Right.
you are, I mean, I guess if I were on a Caribbean island somewhere, I would have somebody I could call to do that. But I mean, it does usually fall on you. So if you want work-life balance, owning your own business probably is not the best way to go. But if you love it, you're okay with getting calls in the middle of the night. So.
Catherine, any thoughts on that?
Well, my business is still very small, I think. And I have like 3 kids, like I said, you know, a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So because it's small and it's, you know, I want it to get bigger, but it's enabled me to, you know, be home. I guess I'm home with them. I mean, my mother helps me a lot, and I have, you know, after school care for the little one, and it's just a juggle. It's like, I'm lucky because I live near my parents, so they help, you know, a lot. My husband doesn't really have a job that he can be home. So you know, I think my business could actually be a lot bigger if I, you know, focused on it if I didn't have kids, basically, and I could focus on it 24/7. But I definitely work on the weekends, you know, and I want to, because I like what I'm doing and I want it to grow, and I want, you know, to have really good customer service. I'm the only person in my business right now. I don't have any employees. So, you know, if I get an email about a question or problem or whatever, I definitely respond right away, and I try to make it right away. So I'm not going to let that go by. I'm trying to think if I've gone away at all recently. I think I went to New York for my daughter's 12th birthday, and we were gone for a few days, and I was, you know, checking emails the whole time I was there. But my business is so that I was only there for a couple of days. And if somebody orders something that needs to be overnighted, I could have called my mother and said, you know, drop it in the mail, but it's, you know, I send everything priority. So when I get home, it comes in a few days anyway. So it's not right now. I'm sure it's going to get, you know, more of a struggle as it gets bigger. But right now, I think it's a good business for me right now with the 3 kids, and I'm able to manage it. So, but I'm definitely getting caught, you know, doing it till 11 at night and not getting great night's sleep. So.
Okay.
Consuming.
If there's other questions that anyone would like to ask, please again add them to the chat, or you know, let us know. We can you know, answer them for you. One other question we got was there a class that you wish you would have taken during St. Mike's that would have been useful for running your own business?
I feel like the classes that I took, all of them have been helpful in business in one way or another. And they've all pulled different areas from marketing, accounting, management. All of it's been helpful. I don't feel like there was a void in my St. Mike's education or wished I took a class.
I'll go. I
Go
wish, oh, sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
wish that I took communications. I don't know why I didn't take anything in that building at all. Bergeron, I don't even know if that's still there, but I don't even think
It is.
I think I took one class. I don't remember what it was, but I should have taken more, because I think that would have been more my speed and more, you know, creative, and just, I think I would have liked it. I don't know why I kind of avoided it. And, you know, I took a few art classes, which I loved. I, you know, started out as a business major and switched to English lit because I'm not great, like I said, with numbers, which isn't great when you have a business. So you definitely, like I said, you need to outsource, because I can't rely on myself for that. So I have a good accountant, and you know, my husband helps me a lot with that. So, you know, I probably could have used more accounting courses and things like that, but I probably wouldn't have been that great in it either. But English lit, I think, was a great degree to do a lot of things with. And I think it was a nice foundation for me graduating. I think, you know, I think I can write pretty well. I think you know, I enjoy reading, and that's what a lot of the English lit degree was. And I think I succeeded at that. And I definitely brought my GPA up after starting out as a business major, where I was, you know, struggling a little.
Was there a class that was just a Microsoft Excel?
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one I wish I took.
Yeah.
I still trip over myself when I try to make a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
and that's very frustrating.
Yes, it is very frustrating. I'm the same way. I've kind of gotten to the point after doing PR for a number of years that I've gotten PowerPoint down and I know how to make a decent slide deck, but now nobody wants to actually see PowerPoint decks. So now that I've learned it, I've become obsolete. So that's fantastic. There was another question here about whether, go ahead. One of the other questions that we got was, do you think that it is worthwhile to get an advanced degree after leaving St. Mike's to be an entrepreneur?
I don't have one. And I don't know, it could have helped me, but I didn't pursue that. I didn't feel an urge to at the time. I mean, I could probably use some business courses, but at the time I didn't pursue it. And I think I've, figured it out in my own way.
Yeah. Before we finish that up, one of the students has let me know that there's a course called BU 175 that will make you proficient in Excel. So well done.
Purely online. Does that mean we can take it now?
Yeah.
You could, yes. I mean, we probably, I don't know if we still have availability. Anything else on the thoughts on advanced degrees? Carol, you went and got yours.
If I were talking to my children, I would probably say, unless you feel a driving need to get into something right away, whether it be business or the arts or whatever you want to start your career in, then by all means go to graduate school, and you're going to open many doors and expose yourself to more things, and it will probably change the course of your life. And yeah, I would say it's a great idea if you're still searching.
Okay.
And if you need more for your body of knowledge for what you intend to do anyway. So.
Okay. I think we have time for one more round of questions, and I wanted to just ask everybody, how's your perspective changed about your job, about your career in the last 18 months since the pandemic, if it has? I know mine has. I feel like I've become a little more, I think I've rolled with the punches a little bit more now versus in the past, because there's a new business phrase that people are using a lot of called YOLO, meaning you only live once. And I think that's a decent thing to come out of all this. So I'll open it up to all three of you. What have you thought about in the last year and a half?
I've been appreciative of the business that I've had, because I was in that category of thriving businesses during a pandemic, where it was just takeout only. And it was something for families and kids to do when everything was shut down. Obviously, we had to switch gears and make everything masking, make everything work for the Board of Health to actually open. But going through those efforts were so worthwhile, and I was so grateful and felt very lucky to have that.
Carol?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things in my mind when you ask that question. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, so much has changed in the way I view my employees, and the gratitude I have to them for coming to work every day with masks on and being kind to customers. the ability to have a business. They say coffee and alcohol, nothing can keep people away from those businesses. And so I happened to be in an industry that didn't really change, and we've actually gotten busier. So we've reduced our hours. I think quality of life has become really important for people. So instead of being open till 6 at night, we're open only until 3 p.m. In addition to my coffee roasting, I have a cafe where we sell the coffee and brewed coffee and everything. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess kind of a YOLO way of thinking of things. And appreciation and
Sure.
yeah, and gratitude for everybody, and just cautiousness and the expectation that customers are going to be respectful and will be respectful toward them. It's not a thing you can take for granted anymore either.
Right.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Well, I, started my business in, like I said, April of this year. So it's not like I have much to compare it to. I had mentioned that I, in a way, kind of lucked out timing wise, because I was able, during the time where nobody was buying anything, I was able to focus on perfecting this bag and getting it to where I want to be. And like I said, I lucked out in a way. I feel horrible. I felt horrible. I feel horrible for anybody that, had a business that they launched, like months before this all went down, or, it must have been horrible. So like I said, I don't have much to compare it to, and it's just me. So I don't have, employees right now. I hope to someday, but I think being direct to consumer was helpful. People could order online, and when they couldn't go into shops or didn't want to go into shops, that was helpful for me. And, nowadays, if this was, I don't even know, 5-10 years ago, it would have been not as easy for me to have created a website so on my own. And they make it so easy now when you go on to Shopify or any of these things to create a website, make it look pretty professional for a pretty reasonable price, I think. So I was able to do that and get it up and running. And, but, I know I'll have my challenges down the road, and, if hopefully there's not another pandemic in the near future, but.
Yes, I think we've had our fill. I think we've had
Yeah.
our fill of the pandemic.
Yes. So, yeah. That's it.
Can we have your website so we can look? Can you tell
Yeah.
us again what it is?
So it's the word, I couldn't get couchette.com. Somebody's got that, or I don't know, I would have had to pay like $20,000 for that URL. So I didn't want that. So mine is shop Couchette, Cushette.
And Garrett just
Added
put
it in the chat for you.
put the link in the
Oh,
chat.
thank you.
So
Thank
so
you.
the
Free marketing.
Yes, I mean,
Cool.
that's the only reason why I did this. No, I'm just kidding.
right. So Christmas season is coming, and we're all going to be buying Couchette bags.
I would love that.
There's a St. Mike's marketplace
Oh, really?
and you can go in and sign up with your
Oh, I'm
website.
gonna write that down.
Yeah,
Thank you.
drive a little SMC business to your website.
Yeah, I would love that. St. Mike's.
Great. Well, I want to thank all three of you for being on the panel tonight, and it's great to see you, Lisa and Carol. It's so good to see you, and
Great to see you.
I felt like we were at St. Mike's at such a special time, and Catherine, it's so good to meet you and
to
have
meet
you
you
on
as
the
well.
panel. It's
Lisa and Carol.
been really good. I'm extremely grateful to all of you for participating, and for those of you who joined us today. If you have questions, if you're thinking about what to do next and how you want to do it, find us on social media. We're always happy to talk to St. Mike's students and share the opportunities that we've had with all of you. So don't ever hesitate to drop us a line, ask us a question, and we're more than happy to help out. That's kind of the purpose of us all being here. So thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks.
That was a fun little class of '89 reunion with Catherine included.
Exactly. Catherine,
98.
you're now an honorary class of '89.
I love that. Times
We'll
were
tell
fun
you-
then.
We'll tell you about
Great
the
to meet you,
Ramones. We'll tell you
Catherine.
about the
You too, guys.
Ramones concert when next time we're on. We'll tell you about the Ramones at PDAC.
Oh, I love the Ramones.
I
All right.
kissed Dee Dee Ramone on the lips.
Oh,
Yes, you
That's
did.
for a whole nother panel.
that's awesome.
We'll talk about that next time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
Bye,
great
guys.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.